4 in a week, folks. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, FSU, and our weekly Wednesday show, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. We appreciate everybody's patience, and we will crank it up here for the next 45, 50 minutes to an hour. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. And I say 4 off the top because, of course, that's the number of commits that Florida State received this week, and 4 for July. And we got Chris Frazier here from Spear Addicts to break it all down for us. Join Chris on Spear Addicts right here on YouTube. Chris, what's going on today?
To be honest with you, today I've done 3 shows. I did a radio show this morning, then I did 2 spaces, and actually 4 shows. Then I was on the YouTube channel doing the pre-recording before this, and now I'm on this one. But it's been exciting for Florida State in the month of July. We've been talking about it for the entire month of June, that July was going to bring fireworks for Florida State fans in regards of recruits landing at Florida State. We start off July 1st with D.D. Holmes, and then Knight, he comes in as well. But D.D. Holmes was a kind of a surprise to most people. He didn't really put out a decision date. He just kind of did it. But people behind the scenes, like we had known that he was going to do it that day. We didn't know what time. And it was just ended up being a really good July 1st. It was quite nice to see Florida State come in with a bang with 2 right off the bat on the 1st. And then you hit the 4th, and it ends up being even 2 more. But to speak a little bit on D.D. Holmes, out of Washington, D.C., Gonzaga High is kind of known for putting out defensive linemen. They've put out a couple. And if I'm not mistaken, that's Odell's hometown, if I'm not mistaken. But he is the second best player in D.C. from what I've read and seen, and 32nd nationally in the defensive line, and nationally ranked he's 274. And I had no idea you had this up here. So I'm just basically like reading this, it looks like, I guess. But some people, it's kind of weird because some people have him ranked as a 3-star and others have him as a 4-star in the composite. I really don't understand the big difference between on 3 and 247 at the moment. But they're quite different on a lot of guys. Like on 3's got us with a couple of more top 100 players, I believe, or top 300 players than even what 247's got. So it's kind of weird, but it is what it is. They do what they do. But us getting Knight was really big for the backside of the DB room. A lot of people have been questioning that area. So it was a really good July 1st. I can go to the next guys, or if y'all want to talk about these 2 for a while, that's fine. Whatever y'all want to do.
Just want to let you know, Odell's from Bartow, but he's a legend for recruiting down in the DMV area.
Gotcha.
Detroit, not Detroit, worse. DC, Baltimore, and Virginia. He's always been really, really good recruiting in those spots. But now it's good. I mean, 6'5", 250. I mean, let's say hypothetically he's not any good. He's got a great body type that you can grow into a lot of different things. Even though I do believe he is good, pretty decent with his hands, pretty good athlete, not a day 1 starter, but you don't really need him to be a day 1 starter at that situation. 2 to 3 years, you want to make sure he's a name that people kind of remember. And I think, Mark, man, you talked about Ricky Knight last week. I'm very, very high on him. Mike said on June 30th, we were going to have some, he expected some fireworks for the month of July, and to be able to jump from the 17th ranked class to up to 13 at this point, and probably going to climb top 10 over here over the next week or 2 as we get more commits. I mean, that's a way to go from being silent and worrying about what your rivals are doing to doing that. Also, with this new thing that everybody loves to talk about, the blue chip ratio. You still got your good blue chip ratio, but then you have guys like you have a good amount of guys who are 3-stars, but we don't really know if there's only 4 3-stars in the class with we had 16 kids or 15 kids right now, maybe less.
15.
But you have 4 of those guys are 3-stars, with a couple of them that I believe will be ranked as 4-stars when the season's over with.
Next up, we've got Elijah Moore, the wide receiver out of Maryland, 6'4", 190, 64th rated at his position, roughly top 10. It came in on July 4th.
Yeah, I'm extremely impressed with the recruitment of him and what he's going to bring to the table. He's a prototype of a Keon Coleman, which we just got out of transfer portal from what was that? Where was he from?
Michigan State. Oh, he was from Louisiana though, originally.
Yeah. But I was thinking of the school, Michigan State. 6'4", 190, and the kid, he's definitely got speed. And again, the difference in who says it, but they've got him weighed in when he came into Florida State. They actually had him weighed in at 208. And for him to be that fast, that big of a body receiver, he's got really good hands, strong hands, goes up and gets the ball very well. His vertical is nice. I think it was a huge get for Dugans. And I mean, Dugans showed it on Twitter and Instagram. He put out a video of how excited he was to land this young man. So it wasn't a low-end recruiter, a back burner guy. It was somebody that he really wanted.
Yeah, and again, Keon Coleman, best example of what we already have on the roster, and that's an example of a good guy, of a good recruiter who's going to be able to have sustained success. Is one of the things that Jimbo did when he was really, really good at it at Florida State. You recruit certain types of receivers that you like. You have your big guys. And you just replicate. So what you don't want to do is have which we did end up doing, is you have your Kelvin Benjamin type guy, but then you lose him. You don't want to have which is your big physical receiver. You don't want to have your shifty guy, and then you lose that guy. But right now, so they're recruiting people to fill voids in which they have when those guys leave. But bigger than that, Mike is also in this class. He's got they've got your 5'11" guys, your Friars and other guys like that. But they're really going out and getting these big wide receivers. Of the top 70 wide receivers, I believe there's only 4 guys that have the size in which Keon has. So not only did you go out and get a guy who, some people may not, because right now I'm trying to figure out which fan base wants to use. Do they want to use I would use the composite because that's a collection of everything. But, sometimes 247 is the gospel. Rivals is the gospel. It really doesn't matter. Bottom line, 6'4", let's just say he is 190 pounds. Those that can run, that's got a good wingspan, that can catch, got a great catch radius. They're not making aliens like that every day. So, like, if you can get that guy on your roster and he improves you, and again, playing ball in that DMV area, which plays a pretty good level of football, you're going to bring that in, and it's going to bring some guys in who are ready to compete. I told you guys straight up, we had Keem Williams in this past class, who I think is going to end up being an absolute superstar at Florida State. But he's not ready to make consistent plays right now. Now, I told you guys about the young man who was a 3-star, ended up becoming a 4-star. Name escapes, Jacobs, Vendarius.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I told y'all, that kid looked like he was ready day one. You never know. Right now, you get these guys in, you develop them, you see what you can get, and I think this is a great get for Dugans. I don't care what his ranking is.
Elijah Moore caught 5 touchdowns in his junior season, 23 catches, 372. I know you guys are looking for safeties for this season, 2023, so this is going to do a whole lot of good. But Rydarius Morgan does play safety, and he's the next recruit in the door.
Red, I like it. I like his film. Alabama boy. I've heard mixed reviews. I watched this film. I have no problem with his physicality, but as some people say, maybe he needs to be a better, more technique tackler. Maybe that's what they were getting at. But as I've heard, and I use it for my own sons, if the dog don't bite as a puppy, it ain't gonna bite when they get full grown. So I like the fact that he's willing to go bite. And that's what you need on your defense. You need some biters. You need some guys that are going to go out and bang. We can work on the particulars, but at the safety position in the back half of it, I also, this is a Fuller guy. Fuller also came over in Jacksonville and picked up a 3-star safety that a lot of people kind of picked on. That's probably going to end up getting quality reps this year. And he's, again, looks like one of the best in the fold. He's also coming out of a program that's got some studs coming out of there. He's got we're not going to get that 5-star wide receiver that they got, which I wouldn't mind having, but this kid is going, he's going to see top level talent every day. And when they come out on the field. So I like it.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of Morgan is his instinct, his ability to hammer when he needs to. I don't think that those things are coachable. I don't think you can coach a dog into someone. And the way that he plays on the field with the instinct that he has, he takes a lot of the right first steps. Like, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to this, so I go based off of what high school film there is. And he's made the right first step 92% of the plays that he's been in a snap on. And that says a lot about a young man's ability to read a play right off the bat and to know where he's supposed to be and what he's supposed to be doing in that play. And I also watch him direct traffic a lot when it comes to linebackers and other corners and stuff like that. He'll tell them that they're too far over off of the half, too far off of the wide receiver. Hey, make sure you've got the tight end coming off. The way he directs traffic is quite nice. And that's coachable, the sense part of it. But if you cannot absorb all of that knowledge, then you're only as good as that you can think. And he just gets it automatically. It's an automatic thing for him. So I really like this kid, and I just think he's completely underrated as far as his ranking goes.
Right, Darius Morgan had 50 stops last season, 4 tackles for loss, 2 picks, 4 pass breakups. To catch up on the stats for D.D. Holmes, 37 tackles, 8 TFLs, and a couple sacks for D.D. Holmes. And we will check out Ricky Wright. But that's the 4 in the door since July 1st for the Florida State Seminoles. Where do we go now, Chris? Who's on the docket? Who are people talking about? Who do you think are the most likely targets that are going to go the Seminoles' way?
Well, I think the first one that we have to bring up is 4-star running back Danzy. I never want to say his first name because I always say Makai Danzy out of Florida High. I'm really, really excited to get him on. He's going to commit July 15th. I definitely think he's coming to Florida State. I don't really think there's another school in the mix, even if he does have a couple of hats up there. I don't think there's even question where he's actually going. What he brings to the table is very shifty. He's a Toa Philly type running back, very gadget player. But the good part of him is he also plays both sides of the ball as well. He actually entered as a safety when it came down to what he was going to be in as far as recruiting goes. And Yak seen him as a running back. And I also know that Pat Surtain likes him in the safety position. So I have no idea what side of the ball he ends up on. He has to run the ball at some point, whether that be on punt returns or as a running back because he's too damn fast not to. He's also a huge track guy. And I'll let James take it from there because the track coach is James's buddy, and I know he wants him.
Oh, yeah. Ricky wants him, Coach Rick. And he's legit. Somebody was like, "Oh, well, we don't want that." I was like, "Man, he's a legit Olympian. Like, I don't want to go against. Like, God forbid he goes somewhere else, and then you got to see that guy. Like, bring him over here, get him on the track team, do whatever." But I always love to brag because don't know if anybody realizes that Florida High produces very upstanding gentlemen from out of the city of Tallahassee. There's only been 3 Seminoles who have come from out of that high school. Mark Mayhew, if you guys don't know who that is, that's the general manager of the Commanders right now. He also got a chance to play for them. I don't know if I could say the name of that.
I know him more as a player than I do a GM. Yeah, he played safety, number 35, Mark Mayhew.
So Mark Mayhew went
I'm a football nerd, James.
Yep, from Florida High. I got a chance to meet Martin for the first time at the Combine. Great guy. A little fullback from out of Rockbrook, named by the name of James Coleman. Got a chance to get some coffee and beignets with the New Orleans Saints. Brandon Jenkins was a defensive end, 4-star defensive end. I forgot where Brandon played. Brandon got drafted. So there's only been 3 guys that have come out of that high school, and all 3 have got the chance to wear the logo. I'm just saying, Makai, I'm not telling you, but I'm just saying that the stats are really, really high for those guys. I can't speak on our stats for everybody else, but I do know those who happen to go to Florida State do pretty well in life after that. But he would definitely be a good get. But they're thinking he's going to run 45 at Junior Olympics, the nationals this year with track. Ricky was saying if he could get to 45, he'll probably get to 43 while he's in college, with another year to do track. And what's crazy is he'll go get them points because he's probably going to be an early enrollee. So this is his last year on the prep circuit running. So he'll be running against college cats next year. So the weapon dual threat on the offense, you put him in space, you're not catching him. And I think personally he's a guy that can play running back, wide receiver, as Chris said, go on the other side of the ball and play a little bit corner or safety. Reminds me a lot of Carlos Williams. Carlos Williams, Vince Williams' little brother, both played at Florida State. But Carlos came in as a high-ranking safety, and they moved him to running back because he was like 220, 230. Makai's not that big, but he's a guy who's so fast and so explosive that you find a place to put him.
And where you would move on from there, there's 2 more guys that are going to be committing on the 15th, and I do believe that Florida State lands both of them as well. 3-star wide receiver, Kevin Levy, he will also be committing July 15th. The good thing about him, he's very versatile as well. He plays both sides of the ball. I also think he's very underrated. I think he brings exactly what Florida State needs in a slot situation, just because of how do I say that? He's very quick off the ball. He's got a good inside move, and then he breaks out to the sideline for that good 5 or 6 yards that you got to get behind a developed play. Stuff like that. He's a good check down player. He also crosses the middle with no fear. So I really like what he brings to the table. And you also got 5-star offensive tackle Jonathan Daniels, who I also believe lands at Florida State. And I want to say this. July 1st, Florida State doubles up on recruits. July 4th, Florida State doubles up on recruits. On July 15th, Florida State's going to triple up on recruits. That's what you're going to get on July 15th. 3 will land. James, if you want to talk about either one of them or Mark, that's fine. I've got 1, 2, 3 more to go after that.
Daniels is another one of those guys where the recruiting services are arguing about. We have him 5-star in one. He's a 4-star with 247, I believe. And Rivals has him as a 3, or I might have it confused. But a lot of people are worried about what his actual size is. Is he 6'5"? Is he 6'3"? All I know is he's a mountain of a man. He's a pretty good high school offensive lineman, and I trust evals of Coach Atkins. Like if Coach Atkins told me we're recruiting a 5'8", 320-pound guard, I'm gonna be like, all right, must be something about this kid because he's done a tremendous job at revitalizing and bringing energy into the offensive line at Florida State. So all power to it. So anybody that he wants to bring on it's got to be a 5-star, in my opinion. But again, another guy that again was July 15th. We hit those 3 guys with top 10, and that's why I was telling so many fans, why are we crying? What are we worried about? Like, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, it's a long, like you finally got a 10-win season. People are projecting us to be in the playoff. Yeah, we have to live for more than trolling the Sisters of the Poor. We are no longer in that group. We're no longer hurt. We're no longer in the guys who aren't doing anything of relevance. Let's focus where we're at and then win recruiting. But like, we're not trying to win who can get the most high school boys committed before National Signing Day. We're trying to win the games where the real young men are playing. So, but again, this right here will hopefully be able to quell some of the stuff, because even then, I think we're still under 20. We'll still be under 20 commits, right, Chris? Yep. The only way to finish, I think, when I keep looking at last year, to finish top 10 at the end of the season, there were only 2 teams that were in the top 10, if I remember correctly, that did not sign 25 or more recruits. And Mike Norvell has never signed a class of 25 or more recruits. So I think this might change it, but I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about winning games, getting the right players, which we seem to be getting. And then with the transfer portal, we may not like it, but it's the new era. It's basically recruiting JUCO plus.
The reason fans cry about it is because most of them don't know much about recruiting, and that's not a knock on them. They've got jobs, they've got other things they're doing. They just look at the recruiting rankings and they go, Miami signed, or Florida got a commit from, and they're ranked 71st. Florida State, that guy's ranked 359. He's ranked 587, whatever. And that's
most of these guys are being ranked by guys who have never ran a 10-yard sprint. Also, so like we got to remember some of the. And I'm not knocking. It doesn't mean they're not doing a good job. I don't mean it by like that, but there's a lot of guys who come in that are ranked really, really high. Like a teammate of mine, Fred Rouse, one of the highest ranked prospects to ever come out of the city of Tallahassee. I don't think he made like maybe 2 plays in his entire career at Florida State. But then you have the other side, you got Ernie Sims, who I just got in a fierce discussion with people saying that he's probably the best football player to come out of the city. He was the number one. He was one of the few prospects who have a perfect 1 rating. And it worked out for him. But a lot of times, we never know. It's a crapshoot. But I do know this, and I guess this would be my attempt to troll here, Mark. I apologize. Miami has almost as many 3-star prospects committed to them as we have signees at Florida State. So just know we're doing fine. Like we're doing fine to only have 4 3-stars and 11 4 and 5 stars.
James is also doing fine there at Den Media Group. We've dropped the link in the chat a couple times. John has here. I dropped it a little bit later. No excuse, folks, to grab the link. Get on over to Den Media Group. We will do the same with Spearatics and the good work that Chris is doing there at Spearatics. Chris, I know you had a live show just the other night. You and James got together, had a nice crowd, and people can check that out. When's the next time you guys are going live? It's typically Thursday night, correct?
That's correct. I did do a pop-up episode because of the commits that we had yesterday. That was me solo. I didn't bother anybody because of it being the 4th. But I did do an episode last night if people haven't seen it. But we will be doing an episode tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. And we'll be going in a little bit deeper about this next gentleman that I'm about to bring up in 5-star cornerback Charles Lester to finish out the month of July. He is committing on July 28th. A lot of fans are worried that he's going to Colorado or somewhere else. I don't buy any of it. I 100% believe that he's coming to Florida State based off of everything that he has said, based off of everything that his people are saying, based off of everything that our coaches are saying. I fully believe that he ends up signing with Florida State, definitely verbally committing to Florida State come July 28th. And that would be the only day in July that Florida State doesn't have 2 or 3 potential signees or verbal commits, I should say, on that date. So I want to tell Florida State fans to just kind of wait a minute because there's someone else that's going to be committing on the 28th. He has not made that officially announced yet, but he is doing it. And I'm not going to say his name because he hasn't put it out yet, but you have a huge possibility of the 28th also landing 2 players there as well. And one of them, the one gentleman that I'm speaking of that is going to be on the 28th, I don't think anybody expects that we're even going to get him. And I think it's going to end up being a big deal for Florida State to end the month of July. Not that it wouldn't be big enough to get Charles Lester because he's like the cream of the crop right now, especially what's left on the board of what Florida State's trying to accomplish. Other than JoJo Trader, this is kind of the big deal. And the other gentleman's just not been talked about a lot at Florida State. He did come 6 times in total visits, but fans probably only heard about 2 of them. The other 4 that he came on was completely quiet, no pictures, no interviews. And it would be a flip. It would be – he's already verbally committed elsewhere, but I'm hearing that he's going to flip to Florida State. We'll see what happens. He may change the date, but everything that I've heard, Florida State should be getting him as well. We'll go back and talk about Charles Lester. So I'm just going to finish this up real quick because we're going to extend the fireworks over into August for sure. Because on August the 5th, 4-star defensive back Jalewis Solomon commits on August 5th. The same day that safety 5-star KJ Bolden is also committing. I do believe that KJ ends up verbally committing to Georgia, but I think Florida State's going to continue to recruit him very hard all the way up to signing day. But I believe that Jalewis Solomon is doing his due diligence right now and checking Kansas out. But I 100% believe that he ends up signing with the Noles on August 5th or verbally committing on August the 5th with the Seminoles. So I think it's going to be a really big month for July, and I think we just finish it off in the first week of August.
Perfectly stated. I mean, I don't really know what else to say with that. I mean, Charles Lester is definitely one of the guys that's a guy you want. In terms of the athleticism, how good he is, bragging rights, being able to dominate. Like, if the class pans out the way that we think it will, and or based upon the commits that we have and the guys that we're trending to get, and even some of the battles that Florida State's in, with your JoJo Traders, your Jeremiah Smiths, with KJ Bolden not just being disinterested, consistently putting us in the top 5, even though KJ's in Georgia. One of the things that I remember one of my teammates told me about Jimbo during his reign, he said, James, who from the state of Florida that Jimbo wanted did he allow to leave? Like, nobody who Jimbo wanted left. And I think we can't quite 100% say that yet, but we can say it's almost starting to trend in that right direction. And one of the things I have to applaud Mike for is one of my critiques. One thing he doesn't do is make the same mistake twice. I believe when he hired his initial staff, he went for comfort. But he didn't hire enough Florida guys not understanding really the wealth and how you recruit this state. Most schools from out of the state, they'll send a recruiter or two, but they don't really know how to recruit this state. Like, you got to have a guy that speaks Miami. You got to have a guy that speaks Central Florida. You got to have not just Central Florida. You got to have a guy that speaks Polk County, which is Odell. North Florida, where I'm at, Jacksonville, is completely different than the Big Bend, and nobody knows what the hell is going on in Pensacola. That's practically Alabama over there. But you got to know your different zones for it to be such a different state. It's very eclectic, very different. So all he had was Dugans and Dell that were guys who were familiar with Florida. We got absolutely slaughtered in recruiting. You had the people, Uncle Luke and them, lying about the commission and not being able to let guys come on. A lot of mess. Then he goes and he hires Bartow. He brings in K. Watt, who's from Deerfield Beach. So then you're bringing in some off-field guys who have ties in South Florida, and then from there you brought in Kewan Ratliff. I'm not going to say where he came from, but he's an op, but he's with the good guys right now. But he has your Central Florida ties. Brought in my teammate Gerard Ross, get you with North Florida. It's been a heavy dose of coming in and getting guys who have relationships in the state. They're still learning, they're still getting their bearings, but you can see the dividends starting to pay off in this 2023, 24, and probably in that 25 class, to where even when you look like you're out of a battle, you're never out. And so what I think they're going to do in 25 and 26, lean even more on that, especially coming off of hopefully a playoff, a college football playoff appearance, or at least an ACC championship. I think they're going to lean really, really heavy on relationships, because relationships and recruiting matter.
There's a comment in the chat about my coaches' rankings. I'll address that comment when I can look them up and find your answer, but I can certainly justify my rankings. All right. Appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. We do this every Wednesday, 6 o'clock Eastern time. We want you to join Chris and James Thursday night. Is that 7:30 Eastern? Mm-hmm. Spear Addicts. Get on over there, Spear Addicts. We have dropped the link in the chat a couple times. Join Chris, join James. They do a heck of a job. And I just assumed both of you guys were together because on the show that you popped up to do the breaking news, Chris, just because I know that just about every time you guys get together, it pops up on my YouTube feed, and I'll click it on and leave you guys up for 10 or 15, 20 minutes. But I lose so much track of time doing so much running around that that seemed like it was yesterday, and it was probably 10 days ago. So anyway, James is at Den Media Group, and you got to get on over there. James, what is in store on Den Media Group and your other initiatives right now?
Right now, we still got Big Games BS. Typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The holiday schedule's kind of and travel's kind of thrown me off a little bit, but we'll have that. We just signed a deal with Gator Bowl Sports, so we'll be doing some cool things with them content wise. But the president and CEO of the Gator Bowl will be doing a weekly podcast talking about bowl predictions and college football in the landscape. So we'll be getting all kind of news behind this. He was the AD at Florida and at Georgia before he took over the Gator Bowl, so he knows a lot and a lot of ends. I can't wait to be able to do more content with that coming into the fall. Outside of that, we got my 4th annual book bag drive. I believe we're at we're 2,800 bags away. We're getting closer every day. We're getting some corporate sponsors, but again, it's $36 a bag. Would love anybody to donate. You can MFT money sign MFTK36 or MFTK Foundation on Venmo, or you can just go to my pin tweet. You can see exactly how at Big Game James _36 how to donate. We'll actually have our first book bag drive July 22nd in Orlando. We'll have our second one in Tallahassee July 29th with a football camp on the 30th. Trying to work this. If you're an FSU fan, when that link comes up, trust me, you're going to want to have your kid involved with that football camp. There should be some really nice guests that they'll probably want to get a chance to see. And then we'll end it in Jacksonville August 5th and 6th doing my weekend there. So, and I'm in Orlando doing business, and I just secured the fine. So we have the parking link will go out. You have to have bought tailgate tickets to be able to get this parking. It's going to be the cheapest parking that you could possibly get. I got a good deal on it, but we now have an indoor venue as well as our outdoor venues for our tailgate. So we have a bunch of lots, a bunch of food, and now we'll be having our Saturday block party, which will be the block party, I believe, will be free. But you have to pay for your own food, drinks. We'll have a live band out there. We'll have some cool stuff. So everything's coming together. $60 tickets. You can go anywhere and find the Taylor tickets, but that's going to be that. Once I get this book bag drive out the way, full speed ahead, getting ready for college football.
And talk about taking a curve or two in life. I know that's happened to Chris here recently. So Chris, it's just nice to see you up and healthy and to hear from you. So appreciate you being here. I know you got a zillion things going on, and for you to take an hour plus for us, just know that we appreciate it. What's going on at Spear Addicts?
The main thing is just now that I've gotten back on my feet as far as health goes, getting all this stuff finished with Savage Sports and CBS HQ and all of that, so that all of us can move on to bigger, better things. But automatically, what's going on is we're fixing to have quite a few. We're gonna have quite a few Florida State coaches come on for interviews on the show here very soon. And on the 29th of July, I'm going to be in Sumter. Was it Lake Sumter, Florida? Speaking for the Lake Sumter Seminole Club. They've got me speaking at their event, their kickoff event. Also, Aguayo will be there. One of them, I don't remember which brother. A couple other former players will be there as well speaking. And the female golf coach will also be there speaking. So you can buy tickets for that if you're anywhere near Lake Sumter, even if you're not a member of their club. It is open to the public. I think their tickets are $35. There's going to be some Florida State drinks. There's all kinds of stuff they're doing Florida State wise. They're giving prizes away, stuff like that. So If you have an opportunity to get there on July 29th at 7:30, do so.
Tomcat, Mark, last year you rated our coach 11th in the ACC. I think you missed on that. What is he rated this year? First of all, I don't know that I rated him number 11 in the ACC. That could be possible. Let's understand something. I'm not predicting the future. My rankings have nothing to do with predicting the future. They are about evaluating the past, evaluating what's going on right now, with certainly if there's a particular coach. Let's take Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, where he's, buried in the woods up in the greater Northwest, and he's got basically nothing to work with, and he's doing a remarkable job. I take all of that into consideration, and I've got a lean toward the future, but I'm not a visionary. I'm not predicting the future. So coming off 3-6 and 5-7 with a loss to Jacksonville State, and based on what I was looking at in evaluating the resume at that point, I think I was pretty justified having him like 35th in the country out of 69 Power 5 coaches. So right now I've got him at number 3 in the ACC and number 22 in the country. I think James and I talked about that a couple months ago, and James had him a little bit higher in that 12 to 15 range, something in that range.
Yeah, I'd put him at least top 20, but top 15. He's not top 10 at all. Not right now. 3 in ACC. I give Dabo. I like what Pitt's coach has done the last couple of years. Was it that's not
Narduzzi.
Yeah. Try to think. NC State coach is pretty. Doran's good. I don't know if I have him in front. Well, Mike can't beat him, so maybe I should have him. But nah, I mean, it's fair. Like the 11th, I don't know. I don't remember if you put him that low, Mark, either. I wouldn't have been that high. I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't high on Mike. You got to go with what you see. Losing the work, he's had one of the better wins, some of the better wins recently. But good God, he's got the worst loss in the program's history on his resume. So that's tough. That's a tough one without having before you see 10 wins. So I'm not mad at you for that, Mark.
And I bring up Jacksonville State, not that I'm ranking coaches based on one game. It's just an example of what we saw at that point. And if he goes out there, let's say Florida State has a really good season by what we're expecting, not crazy win the national championship, but high end of the expectations. Let's say they go 11-1. Let's say they win the ACC championship game and they lose a college football playoff game. I'm going to say that's an amazing season, and that's at the high end of what he should achieve. And really, everything he did to build to that point, or to build to this point at 10-3, it's forgotten. It doesn't even matter at that point that he went 5-7 and 3-6, because I fully acknowledged he took over a mess from Willie Taggart. And I also take that into consideration. Ryan Day takes over Urban Meyer's program. Lincoln Riley hands it to Brent Venables in a certain condition. You can't rank coaches just based on wins and losses. You got to look at what they were given and what they have to work with. Now, Mike Norvell's got a lot to work with in terms of recruiting base in the state of Florida, and he's got a lot of advantage there. But he was given a program that's got the brand of a top 10 program in the nation, but had the roster and the culture of like a top 50 or 60 program.
Yeah, I just think and I've taken a step back too when I realized that, again, this right here will be Mike Norvell's 8th year as a head coach, 4th year at a big program. No disrespect meant to Memphis, but it's not the same. It's not the same, and I think he's never been in a game where you're playing against rivals like that. I'm gonna tell you this. I don't know. I know one of my son's godfathers is probably the most organized football coach I've ever met in my life. He has everything planned for it. I'm pretty sure he didn't have a national pandemic plan, like for your first year. You're trying to get to learn. You don't even know all the players' names. You sure as hell at that point hadn't talked to players' parents. And everybody's got to go home to their respective situations. You don't know what they have access to. The programs that were established were able to do more. Bama was able to do a lot because Nick Saban knew who he was. And I got a chance to see Mac Jones. It was really, every kid got Apple Watches. Every kid got maxed. They maxed out their Pilgrim. I mean, their I think the NCAA lets you can give away $2,500 a month. So these kids get $2,500 a month for their housing, but they're living at home. So, and they're getting nutrition plans. They're having to FaceTime meals. They're having to FaceTime with the coach workouts. Like they're having, like, it was very exhaustive when you don't even have everybody's numbers. Then all the other craziness that happened, Mike's trying to get to know some stuff. Might have, I don't want to say lied tough, embellished maybe a little bit. You did reach out to every player for the opportunity to talk, but you did not talk to every player personally. Player gets offended, blows that up into your face. A lot of off-field stuff that he had very little control over led into that, including with us. I think we were supposed to play Clemson that year, us forfeiting the Clemson game because at the last minute we didn't have enough players that could even field. We couldn't even field a team. So it's just a lot of stuff that kind of went into that first year. Still no excuses, which is why I like Mike. If you're an FSU fan, you want to hear it too. I don't know exactly. I think they're on 36 degrees, and one of them's like in the Annals of Sports Den, but I can find them. But I've interviewed Mike 2 or 3 times, and Mike has never been a guy to make excuses, which is part of the reason why I could not ever dislike him, even when we were losing. He didn't make excuses for being 3-6. He didn't make excuses for being 5-7. He says the expectations is to win and win a lot of games. My job is to do that. And he let other people make excuses. Actually, he wouldn't even allow other people to make excuses for us. The fan base just split itself because we were in a bad time post the Tag thing. Because right, wrong, and different, I don't like the way Tag was fired. I'm not saying Tag shouldn't have been fired. I just don't think you fire a coach after a year and a half. It's very difficult to change anything. It was trending bad, but that's not Mike's fault. So a lot of people took that out on Mike. And that's not fair either. He didn't fire Coach Taggart. He was hired. And what he did was he got an opportunity to come in, and it looked bad, looked worse at first. But now you can't, if you're still hating on it, you can't fully acknowledge that there was a rhyme and a reason maybe to some of this stuff. You'll probably never be satisfied.
James, most of what you said right there is about my half of about 25 back and forth conversations with our buddy Jason Parker when he kept spitting at me 9-13, 9-13, 9-13. I said, the guy took over a top 10 brand in the sport that was more like a top 60 roster and situation, more than a roster. The roster was better than top 60, but in terms of a clubhouse locker room situation, that's the kind of program he took over, but they were supposed to be better than that. And then right out of the gate, as you just stated much better than I could, James, he couldn't establish relationships with his players. And you're trying to turn over a roster, you're trying to teach players, you're trying to input your own terminology and playbook on offense and defense and relationships and all that. And you can't do that. You get it, about halfway through the practices in the spring, and then it's all taken away from you.
We didn't even get halfway. It was a week of spring ball. So you didn't even get a chance to get in full pads. But bigger than that, Florida State at that point, let's say you had Jimbo 1 year. Then you had Walt Bell. Then you had Kendall Browse. Then you had, what can I think about? Kenny Dillingham or Mike Norvell in this situation. So 4 years, 4 offensive coordinators. 4 years, 3 DCs. And now, and what I saw in the first, but now if you go out to a practice, and I think Chris has probably seen this, whistle blows, people are running. Everybody knows where they're going. I was at his first practice. Whistle blew, people didn't know where the hell to go. I took that for granted because when I played, it was people there that had been running Bobby's system for years. I could just go follow the guys who've been here. Like, I hate culture, but like I could follow those guys and know the basics of the culture when I played. So there was guys who didn't know. It was the blind leading the blind when it came down to that. And I don't think people realize learning a playbook, well, it's bigger than learning a playbook. You have to unlearn one playbook and learn another one, and that's the equivalent to learning a foreign language. But learning a foreign language in I don't want anybody to get this. Don't take it too literal, but just imagine being parachuted in China, and now you got to learn how to speak Chinese in the middle of the Chinese jungles, or it's life or death. That's damn near what it's like. You got to learn while people are yelling at you and bullets are flying or bodies are flying all over the place. So that's kind of where I think Norvell needed some grace. But now these guys have consistency, if nothing else. Look at how consistency has changed the defense. I think it was 113.
Hopefully James realizes and comes on back. Let me address this comment made by Tomcat real quick. There you are, James. We got you.
No, I was just saying 115, I think 98-15. Just being there and having the same DC just made your defense better because everybody's on the same page. Offensively, Jordan Travis taking leaps and bounds because he's not having to unlearn and learn something. But that's why I'll be shocked if Miami is good. Miami's been in a similar situation. 4th OC, 4 years. Florida, very similar situation. Like, not my problem, but I know it's not optimal.
I love the follow-up comment from Tomcat. I would have ranked him based on what he was doing through the portal and what the team was looking like in the spring of last year. So I'm going to be ranking a coach based on spring practice. That's about the dumbest thing I've heard. All right, Tomcat. If you would have ranked him that, you start your YouTube channel, you release your rankings, and we'll check them out. All right. All right, folks. Anything else we need to hit here? Chris, appreciate you. Everybody head on over to Spear Addicts. We've dropped the link in the chat a few times. Spear Addicts is the place to be for Florida State. And also, you can make it easier on yourself by just following Chris on Twitter. It's right there, Spear Addicts on Twitter. And then, of course, Big Game James Coleman, Den Media Group, and everything else that he's got going on. And you can catch him there, Big Game James _36. Guys, you make this happen here every Wednesday for us. And without you guys, we don't have a show. So thanks for being here. Everybody make it on back. We had a good crowd of about 125 or 30. Bring a friend or 2 or 50 with you next week. We'll see you on FSU Live.